meeting tonight. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. We're going to open our meeting with a reverence and a pledge of allegiance. And our reverence is going to be offered, our pledge of allegiance tonight is going to be offered by Commissioner Platt. Would you all please join us in a pledge?
Our Father in heaven, we are so very grateful for the opportunity to meet together tonight and to discuss the needs of our city. We're grateful for this beautiful weather that we've had. We're grateful for our community and for this country that we live in, for the freedoms and blessings that we enjoy. We're grateful for the opportunity to participate in the process of listening to the citizens, and we ask that thou would please help us to carefully consider all of the viewpoints being presented and to make any necessary decisions in wisdom. We ask that thou would please bless the leaders of our country, help them to make wise decisions, and Father, please help us to be mindful of those in need, that we can be in tune and know how best we can reach out to them and help them. We ask that thy Spirit will be with us throughout the remainder of this evening, and we say these things in the name of thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Prince. The first item on our agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes for the Planning Commission meeting that was held on May 13th, 2021. Commissioners, have you had an opportunity to read through those minutes?
Yes.
And are there any corrections that need to be made?
There is a correction on, it's regarding the perks conditional use. The minutes mentioned in the motion that I had made that it not go above 28 feet. And that was not included in the motion that I made. The timestamp on that, if you listen back to the video, is right around 11:53 out of there to be accurate.
Okay. So to remove that notation that it not go above 28 feet.
Correct. I had motioned that we recommend approval, and then brought to the attorney and that's height as well as, and I couldn't hurt. I added that to my motion, but from what I listened, there was no stipulation of 28 feet.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Heather, will you note that in the minutes for the change, please? Thank you. There were other couple minor spelling errors that I think we've brought to your attention. Any other changes to the minutes? If there are none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Somebody?
I'll motion that we approve planning commissions for the meeting on May 30th, 2021,
May 13th.
or May 13th, 2021.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wilcox to approve.
I'll second.
Aye.
Item on the agenda tonight is General Plan Committee meeting minutes for May 11th and also for June 1st. These were two meetings that the the advisory committee held regarding the general plan. They were work sessions. Notes are available.
I'll motion that we approve the minutes for the general plan committee meeting minute for May 11th and June 1st, 2021.
I will second.
Aye.
Aye.
This is a public meeting. And the first item on our for city business tonight is a public hearing for a conditional use permit for the oversized structure of 2,400 square feet located at 4369 South, 6300 West for Mr. Guy Adair. Is there a representative here?
Guy Adair.
Okay,
This is just for a personal shop, storage space, trailers.
hobbies and workshop. Okay, I see you're not gonna have any plumbing, but you will have power installed eventually, you say?
Eventually.
Okay, just know that you need an additional permit to do that if you don't do it at the onset.
Okay.
You also noted that you do have a business license because, does that be, your Realtor license?
It is my real estate.
Okay,
I just work out of it.
okay. All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Adair from the planning commission?
Okay.
Tell us. Okay. No questions from the planning commission. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to have any input on Mr. Adair's request? Okay, seeing none, then we'll close the public comment. Commissioners, do you have any other discussion? Any questions?
Yeah, it'll be 3 feet.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Guy. Appreciate that. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, then let's entertain a motion here to take a motion on this request for conditional use permit for the oversized structure for Guy Adair. Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Platt,
I'll second.
and we have a second on that motion from Commissioner Prince. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item on our city business agenda is a public hearing for a conditional use permit for a modular home on a foundation for Mr. Thane Anderson. Is there someone here from representing Thane? So they phoned you today and requested this be tabled? Okay. So then I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion that we table the conditional use permit for a modular home on a foundation located at 4790 South, 5500 West for Thane Anderson. Until, when we're tabling this, or we'll table it to our next planning commission meeting in July 8th, I think. Right?
First week in July, or the second week in July? Okay, so that's July 8th. Okay. All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Prince to table this request until next planning commission meeting, which will be July 8th. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
By Commissioner Wilcox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Third item on our city business list tonight is a final plat approval for the Venable subdivision, which is a one lot subdivision located at 5900 South and approximately, well, I believe the actual address is 7040 West, 5900 South, and this is for Sam Venable. Tracy, city engineer, do you have a presentation for us? my eyes aren't the best, but is it 150-foot frontage? And how deep is it? It looks more than 300 to me. I'm sorry that I can't see the plat. Yeah. 316. Okay, it just looks really long, and I thought, which is fine, but. No. Okay. Okay. Okay, that was just a question that I had. Okay. Thank you, Tracy. Any other questions for our city engineer or staff? Yeah. Correct.
Widen the street and pay for that themselves? Is that, I mean, is that standard practice for the city? Is that how we've always done it? Okay. Just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up to, you know, a big bill that we're not anticipating later. So.
Yeah, there's.
Come up and, yeah, have us.
Have my son put one there.
Just for the record, I need you to give us your name and address, Stan.
Dan Fowers.
Uh-huh.
What else you
Your
need?
address, please.
5984 West, 5 North.
Okay, and you're the property
Incorporated
owner
Davis.
to the east and the north of the subject property.
What's that?
You're the owner of the property to the east and the north of the subject property.
Yes.
And you are not desirous to have a land use separation fence between the
do
two
not.
pieces of property. Thank you. Okay, we might have some other questions for you, Stan.
So do you want me to tell you what I told my kids?
They're not allowed to sell?
That they can't sell it. I told them so my grandkids are here. They've agreed this is their last house. They're not gonna sell it. And if they do sell it, I'll put up a fence. I don't.
During construction, will you put up a silt fence, do you think, just to keep things from blowing out into your onions?
No.
No? You'll just make them go pick it up?
I'll go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so a single family home, we really don't need to. I mean, we try and protect the adjacent property owner if they so desire to be protected. And apparently, it seems like you are pretty comfortable.
And if I had somebody build it next to me and it wasn't mine, I would want to be protected.
It's your child. I understand. Okay. one other question. There was a little bit of a confusion here on the Hooper Irrigation will serve letter. The first one that was issued said that there wasn't a pressurized system down there that far, so they had no need to issue a letter. And then we come to find out, in fact, there is a line that goes to there. So do we have a new will serve letter that says that they will serve that property? Uh-huh. And have the shares been turned in? Do we know if the share has been turned in? It has not yet? Okay. Is that something we need to take into consideration at this point in time, since it is final plat approval? Okay, I really think we're gonna need the updated letter, just saying that they will serve pressurized service to you and that the half water share has been turned in or whatever needs to be done in order for them to provide that service before city council can approve it.
So I couldn't service them with my own from, if I chose.
If something happened,
I can't.
they
get into
sold
irrigation.
that property, you would then probably not be serviced.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And, obviously, we can't speak for Hooper Irrigation, but like Tracy said, that's our city ordinance that each house has to have access to secondary water. Right. Well, as long as we know that there's pressurized service there available, so now we need.
It's fine.
Just know that we need that.
Yeah. Right.
Moratorium.
The moratorium on the water.
Probably know a little bit about for irrigation since you're.
Will you come up to the microphone, please? Just state your name and address, please, Cheyenne. for
Cheyenne
our
Bennett.
record. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Powers? Or Cheyenne? No? Thank you. Appreciate your time. Is there any public comment here regarding this issue on our agenda? Okay. See you.
Question. I feel like we've. Obviously, I know Stan is on the board for Hooper Irrigation, so I don't think there's a problem here in doing this. I just want to make sure. And maybe that's something that can be a compensating factor here because I don't know. That's my only concern. I just want to make sure we're being fair. That's my only concern. I have no problem other than I just want to make sure that we're being fair, consistent. Like, That was
I-
on us. We didn't require.
Yeah, I think maybe too, that it should be noted that the air was not on the Fowers or Venables. It was the air on Hooper Irrigation because they told them it wasn't available. So their intentions. Jared, way to go, Jared. I just called you out, buddy. Yeah. So I think, and I totally agree with Amanda, you know, we don't want to get into that mode of pushing conditions. But I think their intentions were that would have been done, but they were misled by Jared. I don't know.
I mean, that makes sense to me. The fact, like I said, I know Dan has a connection, and I know that obviously if it was on our part, that's a little bit different. The other instance that I brought up, developer dragged their feet prior, I think, and I don't know, it was like the year prior and it hadn't been resolved yet. And I think this is a little bit different, and that's why we talk about it, to make sure that I'm okay with that in this instance.
Request for a final plat approval for the one lot subdivision for Venable.
Sure.
Hooper Irrigation.
Hooper Irrigation. Maybe make sure that share is turned in. Shares.
Have a motion from Commissioner Platt. Get that recorded? Hopefully. It was, and we're on YouTube. Do we have a second on Commissioner Platt's motion?
I'll second. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Again.
Again. Back to Hooper. We like that. Okay, our final item on our city business tonight was an item that was tabled at last planning commission meeting. It is request for a final plat approval for the Silver Saddles Phase 1 subdivision. 5 lots. Is there a presentation for this, Tracy? No? Okay. Then I would, our city works director, Jared Hancock, has some comments for us. Yeah, there is. Okay, then let's hear from the representative for Silver Saddles, please. Will you come forward and give us your name and address, please?
Absolutely. Brian Bayless. My address is 1656 Equestrian Parkway, Kaysville, Utah, 84037. Steve wishes he could be here, and I think the rest of us are happy that he's not here. It's taken me a year to convince him, let's just get going on this project. I've been here about a year. The the major changes, I guess, that are remaining. There have been revisions that have been made over the last year since this project was approved. Dropping the elevation of the road and doing a few things that I think, I don't mean to speak for Jared or Tracy, but I think they're totally acceptable, some of those revisions that we've made. The two outstanding revisions that are not acceptable is us having removed the yard drains from the backs of the lots along the western portion of the. And 1 through 10. So we will be adding those yard drains back. And so it's the right thing to do. There's a berm there that catches the storm drain, but in one of Jared's or Tracy's letters, I'm not sure which, there's got to be a conveyance system, well, to get that water out of there. And so that's our, we're going to make that concession and be consistent with that. That should also not be different than what was originally approved on those plans. And then the second item that needs to be revised is along the backs of lots 16 and 17, 17 and 18, the elevation of those lots need to be brought up. Staff's recommendation. So with those two changes, my hope is, and I'm happy to address any other questions that you all might have, but I told Steve to stay home, and I said, let the big boys handle this one. So big boys and big girls for you that are here. But bottom line, I think hopefully those address the two changes, and I'm hoping to get a conditional approval similar to the last approval, that those two revisions be made to the plan so that the elevation of lot 16 and 17, 17 and 18 are brought up, and that the yard drains on the backs of lots 1 through 10 are approved. Those have been in previous versions of the plan, so it's as easy as getting our engineer to do that. Just everybody is backed up right now, and we weren't able to get these revisions made in preparation. So I do apologize for that, and our hope is that you'll approve us based on those two conditions. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'll just make a comment. And don't take this wrong, but I mean, why is it taking so long? Because you've been on the agendas multiple times, and
Yeah.
obviously you're fairly new to the company, but you're putting us in kind of a tight spot. And so I'm just kind of curious, why? Because you knew the deadlines and why you missed them. Because we have 2 weeks. You have to submit items 2 weeks prior so we can review them.
Understood.
And you showed up this morning. I know there were some efforts made, but anyway, that
fair question.
makes our job a lot harder.
Yeah, fair
Makes us
question.
look like the bad guy when it's really, it's you guys not doing the checklist.
Our part.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it, Bryce. That's a fair question. I guess maybe two thoughts just to come to my mind and hear any other feedback. This has gone back and forth internally. So I've kind of just said, Steve, we need these lots, and he's kind of conceded and agreed. That's been a regular conversation that's gone back and forth. Now we have made some significant revisions over the past 8 months to a year. Those things have all helped improve the conditions of the property in addition to a rising market. The reason why we didn't meet the requirements this time is because we weren't willing, I don't think, to concede until we had some additional conversations with Jared and Tracy and some additional conversations in. But the one thing that I will say, Bryce, is that things that we're proposing in here have been in previous versions of the plans. So it's not an entirely new concept. We're just reverting back to previous versions of those plans that have been studied, presented to the Planning Commission. So that would be my only thought. And then the second thought is that if the approval is given based on these conditions being accepted, it won't make it to City Council, or won't make it through City Council without those things being incorporated. So for what it's worth, I apologize for not having it done. But the other challenge, I guess, and this is unique to Hooper, is every month. That's a hard, most cities meet every week or every 2 weeks. And so waiting a whole nother month, shame on us for not being ready for tonight, given the last, months and months of changes. But we're just hopeful that we can move forward and get going on the project. So, but I understand your concern.
I had a couple of comments.
Yeah.
And thank you for being so cordial and smiling. It makes it a lot easier. So,
a lot easier. Yeah.
It's hard because things, when you guys took over this subdivision, things were already approved and ready to go. And
Yeah.
then these changes were made.
Right.
And so any delays have really come because of those changes.
Agreed.
And I mean, we're all on, everybody was on board with it moving forward, and then that happened. And so it's unfortunate, but that isn't really on us. And I think some of that frustration has been kind of directed at the city when city had already given approval. And so it's hard because I really struggle with decisions that are made based where I know you said we're reverting back to what's been on previous approvals and previous versions, but normally, we have our agenda and we're able to look over that and we're able to see what the city staff has reviewed, and I feel like we're able to make a more educated decision. My own personal experience, when I've rushed into something in my life making a decision, I most often regret it later. And I'm not saying that's what would happen here.
Yeah.
It's just kind of unsettling for me to just go off of, after it's been kind of adamantly
Delayed and
opposed this
delayed.
entire time, and now saying, oh yeah, this is going to go through and we're going to go back to what was said, but we don't have anything in writing in front of us, nothing saying that. And so
Sure.
that's hard. Those
Any
are my
way I can
thoughts.
respond to that? Yeah.
Sure.
Just a few thoughts. So number one, I would love it if Tracy and Jared said yay or nay on our suggestions, but I did put it in writing, and it was, hours before, maybe a few minutes before the meeting. But our commitment is based on an email copied to Steve saying, hey, this is what we're willing to do. And those were the two conditions that we commit to. So that part of it is in writing, but I don't disagree with anything that you've said. It's, my hope is that you would look to staff to say, hey, where are you? And not putting you on the spot, but if we can see to those two changes, is that acceptable? Both of you, in the past it has been.
Well, and there's a few things listed here on the memo that we have that I know both Tracy had some concerns with. I just don't know that all of those have been addressed. I mean, I guess you guys would ask on that, but so those, sorry, when they said that they, got in contact with you this morning on the changes that were going to be made, you feel like you've had adequate time to look at those changes and so it's the same thing as we referenced this previous staff memo. You're saying your little okay would be next to that on all of these issues that have brought up on your conversation with them.
There are a lot of minor things, Amanda, that have been addressed in the plans. That's what makes the list look so lengthy. Two large remaining items that haven't been addressed are these two that I've mentioned here.
Those two items, would that encompass the scope of everything? Is there anything being left out? Is there, but those two that he's referring to, the drain along those to go into the detention basin with the catch basins in each backyard, and then the berm, of course, on the other lots, and bringing up some elevation as well. Those two, will that encompass everything in the scope that you guys are wanting as the city staff, or is there anything we're missing?
Saddlebags to haul it around.
I'm
understand
taking.
The memo from, that was in our planning planning commission packet from last month. It was dated May 12th. And one of the items was that we are no longer asking for a high point at the rear of the lots, as was approved by the original plan, but asking for grading that eliminates any potential rear lot conflict. And then grading for lots 26 and 42 is just a simple change in the location on the plans. And then we talked about allow lot drains to collect and remove the runoff, and that's gonna happen between lot 6 and 10. So 1 through 10. So that's, that would be better. And so at the very end of your memo, Tracy's memo dated May 21st, it says, unfortunate that these two last details could not have been worked out through normal process. Overall, Public Works and Engineering are pleased with the plan, acknowledging that we just had a few of minor items. Infrastructure plans are improvements to the previously approved plan. However, with our knowledge and experience with this particular issue, we cannot, in good faith, ignore the last two items yet to be addressed related to lot drainage. We would not refresh addressing that number there. So we only had just a few minor things that needed to be overcome in the last month. And now we're at the last day. But conversations, do we have written verification? What do we have that helps the planning commission feel good about moving this forward? So you guys
And-
have had an attitude adjustment
Yeah.
in the last 30 days?
Yeah, we absolutely have. And I guess the only other, I mean, you're looking at the three folks that will be ultimately sitting on the board when we send it to the city council, hopefully in a few weeks. If not, it's gonna be 6 more weeks, which is okay too. We'll work with that as well, or preferably not, but, I mean, it'll be the same folks. They're saying, yes, they've addressed these hopefully that's satisfactory. And I like Jared's suggestion of making your recommendation based on staff's memo.
Well, we as a planning commission have made it pretty much a hard and fast rule that we're not pushing things forward to city council with conditions on them anymore, because I think we got mired down over the last 4 or 5 years in doing that, and then we became overwhelmed. And we kind of dug ourselves into a problem that we don't want to ever get into again. So we as a planning commission pretty much have taken a stand that we don't want to forward things to city council without the T's crossed and the I's dotted. So tonight, we're kind of in a position where we don't want to really table it again.
Yeah, please, Nathan. Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's been a year and a half probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how far into the economics you want to get, or the business side of this, but ultimately, our thought was there was probably a $500,000 cost increase as a result of some of the approvals that were given. And they're approved by the city, right? The city's supportive of them. The person who went through the approval process is not a developer, doesn't build lots. Kevin Ivins does a little bit, but not nearly to the scale and scope that we do. And we've seen development work in a lot of different ways with regard to drainage. We develop and build in a lot of really flat places. In a lot of cities, they require yard drains. It's not something that they'll allow on occasion. And so we felt like there were a lot of solutions that would avoid some of the additional increased expenses that we would otherwise avoid in other cities. And so it was our hope as we engaged in the process with Tracy and Jared and you all to cut back on some of those costs and still provide solutions that would work for the residents of our homes, right? It's never our intent to build a bad solution from the get-go, right? And so Nathan, that's really the explanation. We went down this path thinking that we were going to be able to work through some of these issues in a way maybe differently than what had happened. But as a result, I think Tracy mentioned this or Jared mentioned it, and I'm not sure which, we found out that there were some solutions that I think ultimately ended up benefiting the city by dropping the elevation of the road. And if you look at those lots at the end, it's between 10 and 11, lots 10 and 11. We're neighboring the property owner to the north. And there was probably a 6 to 7 foot difference from native ground to where the elevation of that road would have otherwise been. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for Jolie. He has to build up his road and then connect onto that when he develops his property. We were able to actually drop the elevation of that road, and as a result, drop a lot of the fill that was needed on those lots adjacent to that road. So in our opinion, we came up with a better engineering solution. And so that time is definitely not lost to us. And I think the city, I don't know, if I'm speaking out of turn, you guys disagree, but it feels like it was a good solution that benefited everybody, the property owner to the north, us on the costs, and the city is in a good solution as well with utilities and roads and all those things. So from our perspective, it wasn't a waste of time. Ultimately, I think we would have liked to have ended up with a few things different, but we're here now and we need the lots and we're ready to go. And it's been a painful process to get there, and we could have communicated that better and done a lot of things differently, but we're here now, and I think that, again, hopefully, I guess my plea is that you all will have the confidence in staff, say, before we get to the city council for their approval, that these last few items are checked, the boxes are checked. And I know that's a big ask according to what your explanation was, Mary, and I understand that, and you guys have to make that decision. Nathan, does that answer your question? I don't know if it does or not, but. That's another good. Yeah. 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 That's fair. The other part, Nathan, that is hard is there's a market price at which the consumer will say, hey, this is the value of that lot. And that varies a little bit, right? In the last 12 months, it's gone like this. But there's a market price for that lot because they can go buy a lot somewhere else. And so oftentimes as the costs increase, the developer, we don't just pass that on to the consumer in all instances. We eat some of those costs. And so again, this $400,000 of increase of cost based on our contractor's estimate was a cost that we at all costs were willing to kind of really try to pursue solutions to. And it feels like we're there now. So when you say we'll pass it on to the home buyer, to some degree that's true, right? These costs are passed on to the home buyer ultimately, but there's also a market price that dictates what we can or can't sell the home for. So without getting too far into the weeds, it's a fair.
It's the thing that I'm having a hard time with. You say, you want us to hopefully have faith in our staff. And ultimately that would have been ideal if you,
Agreed.
because they're familiar with
Yeah.
this area out here. They understand some of these places, other subdivisions and developments that have gone in where they've done something similar. Steve brought that up in the last meeting. Well, we're not asking for anything that hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
But just because it's been done before doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. And I think we've learned that in some instances. And so I feel like ultimately, we're the ones that 10, 20 years down the road, we'll still be living out here looking into the eyes of people that come into the city and say, why did you do this? Why did you allow this to happen? And I put a lot of stock in what Jared and Tracy say. They're very knowledgeable. They're familiar with everything out here. And I guess my concern is in doing this, I don't want to put them in this position again, so that day of planning commission meeting, somebody comes in and says, okay, we're gonna make these changes now. And I just don't like the precedent that sets. And so it's just, that's difficult for me. That's where I'm really struggling with this. I don't want to do that to them. I don't want to do it to city council. And I feel like if this was on us, it would be different if we had our feet and
Like
put
the
you in
last
this
one
position.
with
Yes,
Hooper
that was a
irrigation.
little bit different because
Understood.
it wasn't,
Yeah,
that wasn't their fault.
right.
And I'm not trying to point fingers.
No,
and
it's
I
totally our
really like
fault.
you. I want to say yes, but I'm concerned principle wise.
Yeah,
We've tried to be really careful with that. And I hate the 6 weeks. I wish we did meet more often so it didn't put an undue burden on you, but ultimately it's not, that wasn't our intention from the beginning. We wanted to try and make this go through. And this is a tough one.
I guess the only thought that I had. Sure. This isn't, concern issue. It's a tough one. I guess precedent wise,
I'll give you a ray of hope.
Yeah.
Brian. So.
thanks,
anyway, there's
Bryce.
two things we can do, from what I understand, is deny you
Right,
or, with conditions. But, say my thought is if there's conditions, it's not a condition to go to city council. It's a
back.
it's a condition that if you don't meet the conditions, you do not get put on the agenda. And put a pretty tight noose around your neck that there's dates. So the 17th of June is the drop dead date
Yeah.
for you to be on July 1st.
Yep.
And if you don't, I'm just talking this through because
Yeah.
this is what we can do.
Yeah.
Then it's on you, totally 100%. If we go the other route but if there is a motion made to do that, it's going to be pretty lengthy and the verbiage will be, pretty specific. If we deny, then of course you can go to the city council. And I'll be honest with you, I like a lot of the members on the city council, but I don't have faith. They might approve you. I don't know. And then you can do whatever you want without these two revisions. I kind of like to hedge my bet and kind of keep control a little bit. So those are our two options, really. If we do deny, and I totally get what
Amanda's saying, yeah. And that,
we're in a pretty unique situation where we need to, number one, protect the city against any future issues. And honestly, we don't want to see again on Silver Saddle. We're going to see again, but not on this one.
Want to see you again.
Yeah, we do. Just, you know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Yeah.
So really, that's what we have to look at.
Yeah, tabling for us is
Tabling just.
it's hard, Bryce.
but,
I agree.
So
and I
what-
don't know if we can table.
What does a motion like that look like? If we either motion to recommend approval or we motion to deny or recommend denial or we motion to table. So, okay. Sorry.
Public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to make comment regarding this request on Silver Saddle? Okay, seeing none, then we'll close public comment. And now, let's bring it back to our commissioners for further discussion.
It's not on the agenda. Doesn't even make it. Why,
July 17th,
June 17th. So a week
is that enough time?
doesn't matter if it's enough time.
Because they've had a year and a half of time, so.
I agree, but like it's kind of a.
So by doing that, I mean, yes, you guys, that puts everything completely on, like, planning commission is out of it at that point. We're saying if they accept it, then we're fine with it. Sure. If we make that option, including that, if anything else changes at all, like, yeah, they might meet these two things, but if there are any other things that come up, it has to come back to us before it moves forward. And I have one question. Do you work for Steve or does Steve work for you?
You're on YouTube.
Who's the one making this call? Because I feel like you're willing to work with. Okay.
He's the better half.
Okay. So you have the authority to. Okay.
I know you're looking at your calendar, Dell. Are those dates correct? The 7th? But it needs to be submitted
By
2
June
weeks
17th,
before
right?
that. So a week from today.
So submitted June 17th, approved by city staff, no changes in order to be on the council meeting for July 1st.
Okay.
And
Doesn't
if,
matter when it's submitted, it just has to be reviewed by them on the 16th.
well, and does that give you guys enough time to review it if they get it on the 16th so that we can get the approval and post it?
To
Okay.
review it. Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's what I'm saying, it'd be nice to have it the 15th, right? So that you have all day the 16th.
Well, and if it's just going back to a previous memo, it shouldn't be too complicated.
Okay. Any other discussion? Regarding Silver Saddles? Okay.
I think
Then I would entertain a motion regarding this request for final plat approval for Silver Saddles Phase 1 subdivision.
go for it, Bryce.
Okay, first of all, if I forget anything, please amend my emotion. Not my emotion, my motion. So, okay, here we go. I motion that we recommend final approval for Silver Saddle subdivision Phase 1 with the conditions that all requirements are met with city staff specifications and to their satisfaction, which could include pipe size, concrete collection boxes, and placement of pipe and the entire scope of work. Also that everything will be submitted to the city on or before June 16th to be placed on city council July 1st. If these things are not met, then Silver Saddle will not be put on the agenda for city council on July 1st.
And if there are any changes, that needs to come back to the planning commission or any changes, anything different or new that comes up outside of what's already been stipulated in those memos that we've referenced. Have it come back and, right?
We have a motion initially from Commissioner Wilcox and amended slightly by Commissioner Prince to recommend approval to city council with conditions on this request. Do we have a second for this motion?
Second.
Commissioner Greener. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, seeing that, then this passes unanimously. It will move on to city council, conditioned that everything is presented to our city staff and approved before it gets on the agenda. Okay. All right, thank you. That closes city business for tonight. Like to bring up any new business or make any comments that they'd like planning commission to be aware of, now's your time. Okay, thank you. And any new business here among the planning commission?
Five lots that, they could have one or all of those less than that 150, but if it's over five, then I don't know if you guys know.
So if I understand right, Commissioner Greener, you're proposing that the planning commission make a proposal and present it to city council regarding a change in that, in our table within our. Okay. Commissioners, discussion on that? Any ideas?
R1 and R2.
Basically, in the surveys that we've done, well, it kind of goes hand in hand with the general plan, right? I feel like this is something that should be addressed for the general plan, kind of preceding that, so that we know how things would look with that in play for the general plan future use map. In the survey, top two, I don't even remember how the question was worded, but the top two things that people were most worried about or concerned about for the way that, Hooper land usage was. It was question 5 on the survey, which I can remember. Top 2 ones were 1 acre lots and 150-foot frontage.
Had to do with lots,
Correct.
trying to. How come-
Exactly. So basically, we, can accomplish that larger lot feel with half-acre lots if they still have that 150-foot frontage. So if somebody's driving through a subdivision, they don't necessarily know, is this 1 acre lot subdivision or half-acre lot? It still has that open Hooper feel to it, but it might only be half an acre. And I feel like it's a really good compromise between the two.
So if somebody that that way you're wider, right? But you don't have as, and so would that be out here for that purpose? How come? Help me understand, because I, okay, gotcha.
It's not impossible to be done. So they still found a way to maximize the ground, just like they always do.
Also, oh, sorry. Another thought that I had, if you have lots that are less, have kind of butted up against my home, I have a yard. I mean, they have no backyard, it's all side. And so, I mean, they're like right there looking. Part of the appeal of living in the, have a little bit of space. Considered, I can see where both are.
Well, think of this
appealing.
too, though. A lot of issues that we have with people worried about the R2 being zoned next to their existing R1, because they're then gonna have two neighbors in their backyard, right? If, they've got that 150 feet of frontage and you got 100 feet behind you, then basically you're almost guaranteed you're gonna have two neighbors behind you. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of a give and take on that. And, I mean, Nate lives in that exact example, so, I mean, I don't know, you ever feel like your neighbor is, you know what I
Are
mean?
the homes behind you like that too, or how is it set up?
So we need to begin with having a written proposal.
I definitely think it's something to look into, especially where we had such a large response on this. I just want to make sure we look at all the avenues maybe before. I just need to with that, I guess, before.
So my recommendation is that we as a planning commission maybe be prepared next month with a proposal, some kind of a suggestion. Maybe between the five of us, we can combine them and come together with one idea that we can take to the advisory committee, see what they seem to think, and then if they like it, present it to city council. And we'd be looking at modifying an ordinance. Yeah, and it has to go to city council, but we as a planning commission need to make a proposal to them. So, I'm thinking, we should put our heads together and come prepared next month with some ideas on how we can accommodate, or how we can accomplish or achieve the more spread out feeling that Hooper City wants to maintain and still be able to balance the needs and also meet our public works. That is the big point. Absolutely it is. What is zoning, how we're gonna do it. And if we modify the zoning of R2 to have more frontage, then maybe we can incorporate a little more R2 in the city and not have it feel so dense. Just a thought. So let's, as a commission, plan on coming prepared next month with some ideas and proposals and whatever on.
August, right? So is that gonna talk about this a little bit? Advisory committee, we're prepared to, I don't know, I just.
Are we still zooming these meetings? No?
I'm gonna be gone on the next planning commission meeting. I'm out of town. we started the Zoom meetings, so I'm not sure what's in them.
Well, in the meantime, Commissioners, let's work on this idea that Commissioner Green has brought up, that we maybe should look at modifying our ordinance to changing the frontage for R2 zones and see how we can work that in. Okay? Any other new business? Anyone?
I would just encourage everybody in attendance. There will be some open houses that are going to be coming out for the general plan revisions that were. When those are posted, if you can just encourage everybody out, and so important. I want to hear what people have to say so that you guys are the ones making these decisions. Yes.
Thank you, absolutely. Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.